to this evening. I'd like to go into another topic right here, and that is basically that everything that we call art is ultimately propaganda. And what I'm going to focus on is the media. I wrote an article recently for my website. You can visit that at michaelcross.net and read it, but I'm going to elaborate on it right here. Now, the thing is, George Orwell is the one who said that all art is ultimately propaganda. And a lot of times people might look at that and they might think, well, now, wait a minute. How can you say a painting of, I don't know, a lake is in some way propaganda? Well, propaganda can be defined as something that changes our point of view. It elicits an emotional response. It gets us thinking and contemplating. Or it could be just something to persuade us. And so therefore, everything such as, everything such as a painting of a lake, or as in the example I use in the article, photography is ultimately propaganda. Because you're trying to communicate something, and you're doing it at somewhat of a subconscious level, which that's usually included as an element in propaganda, that you're changing someone's views in such a way that they're not really even critically thinking. They're emotionally thinking. Now, getting back to the article, I use an example there of photography, and then I'm going to tie this in to the actual media. And by media, I mean the whole thing. I mean newspapers, television, commercials, but also the news. Because ultimately, I don't see any real difference between a commercial for toothpaste and a regular network news program. I'll explain why later. Anyway, the thing is that let's just go with the example here. Let's say you have a photographer. The photographer is doing a photo shoot with a model, in a forest. Now, if the photographer wants to deal with like an esoteric message, the photographer can have the model, for instance, and just an example, dress in a dark robe and be out, in kind of a state of reflection. That would kind of have that feeling of contemplation and thinking of higher things. And, you wouldn't even really need to explain that if you showed that photo to a group of people in a gallery and asked them, what is this saying? Now, of course, someone could be, the kind of people that think very concretely, that's a woman in a black robe in the forest. But most people would be thinking, oh, it's trying to convey this feeling or message, because this is what I'm feeling. Now, in another case, you could have a model who is dressed in maybe some sort of Greek-style white, I'm not going to really say robe, but kind of the skirt type thing that we associate with when people are trying to like reenact a Greek play or something. And if she's out like that and she's got this kind of strength pose, like looking out at the landscape like she's dominating it, then again, people are going to see that. Same model, different dress, different pose, different scenery in the background. But still, it's the same photographer, same model. And we can even go further. There's a scene I kind of described from one of my books, in the Freedom from Conscience book, in which the heroine takes out a guy who's a real bad guy in the forest, and she is nude in that. And I have actually seen art pictures in which you have a young woman who it has a bow and arrow and is like aiming at a foe. And again, you could use the same exact model for that. And, you just add a bow and arrow, and suddenly everything changes to like this vulnerability, because psychologically, when people see someone in a state of undress, it elicits a feeling of vulnerability, but also a feeling, this is kind of interesting, a feeling of protectiveness. A person feels like they must protect them. But you have the other aspect that it's almost a contradiction, in which you have a weapon and the person is displaying strength. And when you throw those together, it can create a very powerful image. And again, who's the one in charge of what image is created during this afternoon photo shoot? It's the photographer, looking through his or her eyes and seeing what they see as a feeling, capturing it through the lens, and conveying that to the people who are going to view and ultimately think about the photographs. Now, the thing is, that may be kind of an interesting way of thinking of propaganda, because again, we usually don't think of photography as propaganda, but I can name a bunch of pictures that are classics. I think of one picture in particular. It was taken years ago, and it was it looked like a starving child in Africa. I mean, the child looked like, it's hours away from death. And there's a vulture standing there waiting for that to occur. And that's a very powerful image, extremely powerful image. And you do not have to write a big, huge article about the plight of starving children for people to see exactly what is coming across. Now, I didn't say propaganda is good or bad. In fact, it actually is neutral. Propaganda, it elicits things in us. It's a form of communication, and it's often associated with trying to get you to change. So therefore, people think of manipulation there. But yeah, I think the photographer was trying to make a point and say, look, people, we need to help these people here that are starving. Again, you don't need to have an article about it. But that is what it elicited in the audiences. And that will be a classic photo for decades, maybe centuries to come. Now, let's take a look at other forms of propaganda, and keeping in mind the fact that, not the fact, the statement from Orwell that all art is ultimately propaganda. Now, let's take a look at media and, politics. The media has a very, very powerful position in society. You remember the statement, the pen is mightier than the sword. And in that, what it's trying to convey there is the idea that a person who can write an article to rally the masses can ultimately be influential in the destiny of whatever that society is. Now, the thing is that things have come a long way since the days of just regular printing press and print media. Now, still, it's very important, though. We got to remember, sometimes when we are fans of alternative media, we tend to think in the context that, everyone must be exposed to that alternative media. And it's not true. The only thing you have to do is listen to some of the, many of the people listening right now are very good at history and know a lot about politics. But all you have to do is listen to one of Mark Dice's videos where he's out there asking questions, How do you think about Richard Nixon's race for the presidency right now? Do you think he has a chance of beating Donald Trump? And, Nixon's been dead for decades. But people on the street, they're going, I think I like Nixon better than I do Trump. Or, and he even asks questions in detail. And these people are answering like they really are experts in the field. And, think about that. Those people vote. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that those are the people that you're going to switch over and make into political scholars or something like that. Probably not for the most part. But many of your neighbors, family, and friends, and so forth are people who really do still rely on the mainstream media. At least, to a significant degree. The average American spends 5 hours watching TV. I'll get to that in a moment. But still, that is propaganda there. And that means that you need to pay attention and try to get them to realize the truth that it is propaganda. Now, going back to the analogy that I was not to the analogy. Anyway, the thing that we need to look at here is that the biggest power that most people do not pay attention to is the fact that just like our artist who's taking pictures using a camera to convey in images and not words a feeling, the media has that same power. Now think about this for a moment. If I'm writing an article for a newspaper, let's start with newspapers, okay? Whether they be online newspapers or those that people still get in the newspaper drop box in the morning. Think about the words we can choose. Think about the fact that when I sit down, if I'm a newspaper writer, reporter, whatever, editorialist, when I sit down to create a column, I'm going to put the same care and feeling into that column as I would if I was painting a picture or taking a picture of a model in the woods. Now, I am going to craft this creation, my masterpiece, so to speak, in such a way that if it's a newspaper, I'm going to appear non-biased. But obviously there's no way you can be non-biased. There's just no way. And what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to, if I have the right to be able to choose pictures for the article, I can choose a picture if I'm like saying something good about Obama. Then maybe I'll choose a picture of him with his family or speaking in front of an adoring audience or with his dog. Dogs are really good in pictures because everyone relates to dogs. Most people like dogs, even if they don't have one. They like dogs. I would say about a third of people love cats to like almost an obsession. A third of people are like, yeah, cats are cute. They're nice. I like cats. I'm not going to, lose any sleep over them, but I like cats. And then there's a third that pretty much, they do not like cats at all. But there's enough people that don't like cats that, Hollywood chooses when they show a villain with a pet, it's with a cat. Okay? It's no mistake. It's not just a coincidence that villains almost always, if there's a pet to be shown, have a cat. I would choose a spider or something like that just to make a villain look bad. But ultimately, most of the cats in movies are associated with the villain. Now, I can also, if I want to show a negative side, I can take a picture that's going to show Obama looking like he's tripped up on something, or has a scowl on his face, or is exasperated, or whatever. The thing is, there's a whole bunch of ways I can make sure that the emotion that you start out with before you even read the newspaper article has already been set. And there's other things I can do, of course, to add to that, which I'll get into, but I have already set the emotion with the picture. In fact, a lot of people don't even read the article. They just look at the picture, they see the headline, and they move on. Statement made. Okay. Now, let's say we have, we know how the propaganda works against Russia within the United States now. It wasn't that way a few years ago, but now it is. And the thing is that the narrative there is not one in which I pick up one newspaper and that newspaper has a very negative portrayal of Putin. Then I pick up another newspaper and it has a positive one. No, it's uniform. Very, very, this is the way and this pretty much establishes that there is not what you would call a diversity in the media. Okay, there may be a diversity in how you write your column, but you know the party line. Okay, a lot too many people are going to say otherwise. And even if someone is saying something good about what Russia does, they always preface it with well, I'm not really a fan of Putin, but, okay, I see a lot of that. And, it's kind of ridiculous when people do that. I don't think anyone's a complete fan of anyone. Well, maybe Lindsey Graham, he might be a huge fan of John McCain and hang on every word he ever says. I don't know. But the thing is that you would expect some more diversity and you don't get it. But then you have a reinforcement that eventually grows. The more you diss on Putin or Russia, the more people get this kind of negative feeling about Russia, the more then you feel like, well, now let's take it a step further. And pretty soon it's almost like comic book demonization. All right. And so the thing is that in the wordings of your article, since now by this time now we have a picture of Putin, it looks like he's partying with Satan himself, that then we can use words that will, evoke negativity. Throw in some words like aggression, interference, heavy-handedness, and any other number of words to make Putin look bad, or whoever your adversary is in the press. And if you do that, again, you are evoking emotions. Okay, words are emotions. It's like I talk to so many people who speak several languages. I speak a couple languages, English and some really bad Swedish. It's not very good. But the one thing that all people will say is that the first language they learn, they can express certain emotions in it that they can't express in subsequent languages unless they learn those languages at a very young age. Because we learn language through emotion. It's like if I use the word mother, mother is going to be strongly attached to your own mother and feelings associated with mother. And the same would be true if I said dog. It's going to evoke feelings. It's not just a dog, it's your dog when you were 6 years old. Now, that being said, the way that you can play with words in an article, most people don't even recognize it. They're like, oh, well, he's just writing about what's going on. No. Yeah, the way you present those words is as important as the story itself that you give, and also the picture. And then we can look at the story itself. We can look at that really closely. Now, the thing is, in the media, remember, all art is propaganda, and media is too. The way we can play with that is who we select. You go to a Donald Trump rally. Find the most obnoxious person there, or with the most obnoxious sign. And if you don't like Trump, you take a picture of them. And you make sure that goes out, even though there might be 20,000 other people there that look like regular everyday people. If you want to interview people, you interview maybe most people don't understand this. They've not worked with media before. But if you go to a Trump rally, let's say, or any kind of rally for that matter, and you interview, let's say, 20 people, it's not uncommon to interview 20 people. I mean, many of you have probably been interviewed by media before. And then you're kind of like, hey, I wonder if I'm on the 6 o'clock news tonight. So you turn it on, and then they come up with the event you went to, and they don't cover you. Okay, they cover someone else. But the thing is that they select. It's just like the director when he's, thousands and thousands of hours of footage, and they piece it all together to make one message. That's the way the media works too. So therefore, they show, the bad light. If they want to really make the side they don't like look bad, they choose people to be featured that maybe are saying the same thing as someone else said, but they're saying it in such a way that really turns people off. Okay? I mean, more so than, I don't know, Hillary Clinton singing happy birthday at your birthday party or something. It's just ultimately this kind of ability to fashion the story so you have all these, it's just like colors on a canvas. I can choose this color, this color, this color, this color, this, or this. I'll choose these three to paint my picture. Or, back to taking a picture of the model, I can choose this gal or this gal. And I can turn the entire context around. Oh, this gal has tattoos on her arm, this one doesn't. I can make a message with that. Now, the thing is, this extends also into areas such as radio. It's in newspapers, television, movies. Oh my gosh, movies have a lot of propaganda. And you may not know this, but when's the last time the Chinese saved the world from the aliens? Okay. I mean, that's a pretty, the Navy used to, I think they still do, sail a big aircraft carrier by a country just so their people can see, whoa, America means business. Ultimately a weapon is a tool of diplomacy. And the same is true for Hollywood. Hollywood can present movies. They can, turn out all kinds of media, TV series, and plant something in there. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose. To me, the number one message of shows like The Walking Dead and so forth is you should have food storage, and you should know how to take care of yourself, and you should also have friends that agree with you, in case something goes wrong. And you have all kinds of other programs. My wife was watching some show from England recently, and oh my gosh, the message the message is how horrible this guy is because I didn't catch whether it was his girlfriend or his wife had an abortion. And so he's really painted negatively for being so upset about it. And so again, the message comes across just like a lot of, again, British detective shows often that has a very negative view towards religion, because it's usually the town minister or something who's involved in something dirty. So again, what I want people to just recall, and please share it with people, let them understand that the media they see is ultimately propaganda. And that's true for all media, including what you're listening to right now. It's propaganda. But at least I encourage you to check the facts and consider for yourself whether you believe this to be true or not. And if you do find it to be true, then go out and try sharing it with others. Because ultimately, it's better to be able to crack people's faith in corporate media, get them to question it, than it is sitting there arguing until you're red in the face about why your viewpoint is better than theirs, if their viewpoint has been carefully constructed by the media. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to share with tonight. It's all the time we have. So, thanks you for tuning in, and hope you'll tune in next week to another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY-TV Productions.
Bernays was constantly marinating Freud's ideas. They both knew propaganda worked, and they loved experimenting and trying new grandiose projects. I had heard that before from someone that looked at people as animals, and they could be experimented with. George Soros, listen to this.
When you try to, let's say, improve society, you affect different people and different interests differently. So you very often have all kinds of unintended adverse consequences. So I had to experiment. That was a lot of fun, and that's actually what got me hooked on this whole enterprise.
This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.TV.